Paul Fuller.
And I'm Richard Miller.
We are the co-creators of EnvisionSelfHealing.com and are dedicated to helping you improve your eyesight and quality of life
by taking healing into your own hands.
Today, we're talking about putting vision improvement into practice.
In the second part of this podcast, we'll be answering a question about improving eyesight from our audience. This week's question is from Argentina, where a person did a practice called sun gazing, where they look at the sun with open eyes, and now they see sparks of light.
So, Richard, how's the world of self-healing treating you this week?
Well, as you know, I just finished my 10-day juice fast last week, and it went pretty well. I lost a lot of weight. I lost 7 pounds.
And, wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You weren't doing it for weight reasons, though, were you?
Well, partially, I suppose.
I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, and you lectured me very well about how I should eat very properly and healthily afterwards, and I'm not sure I did follow those instructions. I was so happy to be eating again, and I wanted to try out to see whether my food allergies had gone away, which is one of the reasons I did the juice fast. One of the main reasons.
So you thought after doing 10 days of fasting, you would go back and eat exactly the same foods that you thought were giving you the allergies in order to see whether you got rid of them.
Exactly. It's a good justification anyway. So I had coffee and what else did I have? Coffee, lots of butter, things like that used to make me allergic.
Right. I don't think that was the point, but
yeah. Well, anyway, that's the difference between you and me. So So anyway, I did lose the weight. I did feel much better, and I think it was a very good experience. And I will do it again because it was pretty amazing. It actually put me in a very good mental space too.
And what about your eyesight?
Oh yeah. So the two things happened towards the end that I noticed were a little boost in clarity. So as I was walking.
Wow.
I was walking down the street. I could look down and see things. I just noticed that things were looking a little clearer. That was one thing. And then the other thing I noticed is when I did palming, the black that I could see with my eyes closed and covered was much blacker than it normally is. There's normally like spots of light cloudiness going on when I palm.
Yeah, I have the same.
And that's just the activity of the optic nerve. So for some reason, whether it was the fast itself or the other thing that I did a lot in the fast was do a lot of beet juice. And that improved circulation. And so it could have increased the circulation to the optic nerve and then maybe relaxed it in that fashion.
Yeah.
Hard to know exactly, but it was a good effect.
That'd be really interesting to see if you play with that a little bit more, what the outcome of that could be.
Well, it did convince me to do beet juice on a regular basis, so I will be doing that. And I started to, for the day after the fast, I could not look at my juicer. I just couldn't go near it. And after a couple days, I can now face my juicer again. I'm starting to juice again. So
you juiced yourself out.
I did.
And did you manage to fit that T-bone steak in the juicer in the end?
No. That came later.
Excellent.
Yep. All right, so that was a good experience. My presbyopia program got put on hold because I was so sort of overwhelmed by dealing with how much juice I needed to create each day.
Yeah.
It was sort of a all or nothing kind of thing. I had to do juicing and nothing else. So.
Did you find it was manageable, though, the juicing?
It is. It is manageable. I mean, you have to plan ahead. Basically, you spend the same amount of time you would cooking and eating, but you're juicing for like an hour, and then you're drinking your meal for maybe 15 minutes or something like that. So it's not that different than your regular life. It's just very different.
And I'd be interested to see next time when you do the next juice fast, if you notice it's any easier because you know what to expect the second time around.
Right. No, that is a good point. No, there were phases to it. I mean, there was the tired phase in the beginning. Then I hit the so much energy phase in the middle, and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep for days.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it kind of mellowed out. So I felt pretty good at the end.
Good.
But it was interesting. Very interesting. How about you, Will? How are your eyes and your self-healing doing?
Well, I've actually had a really good week. this week. Very, very positive week. I noticed at the beginning of the week, actually, an increase in my periphery, which is always an exciting moment. I sort of hit these plateau levels, and then every now and then I sort of notice a little bit more in my periphery. So this time it came when I'd just done, it was about an hour of peripheral vision exercises and palming. And then I stood up and turned the lights on in the room that I was doing the exercises. And I noticed I was doing some swinging, the eye exercise swinging.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that I could see the floor and the ceiling at the same time.
Wow.
Whilst I was moving. And I could even notice that there was a ceiling light, which
Wow.
might sound commonplace to most people, but it's funny how you forget there's ceiling lights when you're not seeing them all the time.
Right.
So so that was sort of it, and then from then on, the preceding days when I was out and about walking, I noticed a little bit more in my periphery, and even this week when I was working with a client and I was doing a reading exercise with them, I noticed that I could observe what they were doing whilst I was looking in a different direction. It was almost like a I don't know, like a foggy bathroom window. And you know when you wipe a circle in the window to see through a clearer part,
right?
It was almost like somebody had cleared an area for me to see through in my periphery. So very excited about that. And then I went for a run later on in the week, which it's been a little while since I've had the time to go for a run, but I thought it was about time. And I really noticed an improvement in my vision after getting some good blood flow to my eyes and having a good run. And it lasted all through the afternoon. I came back and had a good juice, some carrots and celery and some beets after your successful experiment with beets.
Mm-hmm.
And just noticed increased periphery. So I'm excited to see what happens over the next few weeks, whether it maintains or whether I'm even able to push it to the next step. So pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, it is exciting.
Well, I think it's about time we get on and talk about our topic of the week.
This week, our self-healing topic is putting vision improvement into practice. And as I've just told you, it's not always easy to find the time to do vision improvement stuff. You do need to carve out time. And as I said with my juice fast, it was difficult to do. So you're always going to be dealing with conflicts in terms of getting your eye exercises in with your life, with your busy life. And for me, I just need to set aside time to do palming in particular for me, and some sunning as a regular thing. And then a lot of the other exercises I do, I try and integrate into my transit experiences on buses and BART trains, things like that. So I'm utilizing every spare moment that I don't have filled up with some work project or something like that. As a way of integrating the practices into sort of fitting it into the little holes that I have here and there. And that seems to work better for me. How about you, Will?
Yeah, it's like the holy grail of questions. And this is one thing that we're finding over and over again with modern day people. And the big, question that they always want to know is, how do they fit these exercises into their busy lives? And Richard and ourselves have been spending many years struggling with this ourselves, and I think we're coming up with some excellent strategies in order to do this. But certainly, you're not alone if you're somebody that wants to improve their vision, but is simply unable to find the time to do it. Or maybe you're just a little bit lazy, which we all have those moments where we might lapse for a week or two. But I think the key is to know what your triggers are. What it is that motivates you, and to have a fallback of ways or a whole bank of ideas of how to work these exercises into your life. And I think this is what we've found to be most successful for us. Don't you think, Richard?
Yeah, very much so. I was thinking it might be good to talk about a particular client of ours who had a very busy life.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And she is a medical student, and her life consisted of her life for the next 6-7 years, I guess, will consist of studying 14 hours a day. And this is the life she presented to us. And it also was a life that was guaranteed to make her myopia, which was already pretty bad, pretty severe.
It was about -6, wasn't it? So
right.
I think she originally came to us about six months previous, as she was concerned about her high myopia, to do exercises for it, didn't we? And she sort of got a good understanding, but then she came back 6 months later, and she said that she had the knowledge of the exercises, but she just wasn't doing them.
Right, and they were helping when she did them, but she just stopped doing them.
Yeah,
and undoubtedly it was because she didn't have time, or she felt like she didn't have time. Of course, the thing people don't take into account, especially like even under her circumstances, if you do the exercises, you're relieving stress, and then maybe you could work longer. So, but it's hard to think that way when you're under pressure to get something done. So she came to us, and our approach was, okay, we're not changing your lifestyle. There's just no way. She's in med school. She just has to do what she has to do. And so how can we work with that lifestyle and bring the practices into that so she actually does them?
So putting the eye exercises into practice then, this was her biggest goal. She had the intelligence. She knew the exercises were good for her. She even did the eye exercises for several months, and she noticed an improvement in her vision. And you would think that would be enough to keep her going and to want to do our eye exercises. But the reality is that she's studying 14 hours a day. She's, a medical student, and right now this is the most important thing in her life. Certainly when Richard and I give our courses and lectures, and we talk about prioritizing and setting goals for vision improvement as one method of getting you to do your eye exercises, for her, it was a matter of really trying to incorporate the eye exercises into her life and into her study. So it was interesting, wasn't it, Richard? Do you remember the categories that we broke her life down into?
No, remind me.
It was studying and not studying.
Oh, right.
And I think she was a little bit upset when she realised that she either studies or sleeps.
Right.
So we pretty much, we knew this was the area of her life that she was going to be able to fit these eye exercises in. So luckily she had the foresight to come and do what we call a vision retreat, and she came and stayed with us for 5 days and worked solidly with us, a few hours every day. And we basically looked at her study patterns and her daily patterns, where she studies, and sort of what's her environment. And then we looked at how we can incorporate the specific eye exercises into those activities. So obviously we can't go through the whole program now because we don't have time, but just as some examples would be trying to look away when she's studying, and she looks up away for the paper for a couple of minutes to allow the eye to relax. Or if she could, maybe study for an hour outside if the weather permits, just to get some natural sunlight on the books, because it's easier to read when you've got natural sunlight.
We did encourage her to take breaks and go outside as well, to not completely study through. It is, and again, that gives someone more energy if you really do take the breaks. It's easy to think, oh, if I don't take breaks, I'll do better. But actually, you take the breaks, you probably will last longer at your task, anyways.
And I remember when I'm sure you remember this as well when you did your degrees, is that the brain can only take in so much information for an extended period of time. So you're giving yourself a brain break, and it's you could study solidly for 5 hours and only take in 1 hour of information, or you could study for 3 hours with breaks, but take in more information. So it's just a case of incorporating, the exercises into these activities, and then actually using them to aid you in whatever it is that you're doing during your day.
Right. I remember another break we finally found in her life was walking from her car to the library. So we incorporated wearing obstruction glasses during that walk. Maybe it was only a 5-minute walk, but it was something, some break in her day. You encourage her to look across the library at least, instead of just down at her books all the time. So.
Yeah, pick the furthest distant point, and I think it's clear, and something we really want to try and get across over the series of these podcasts is that it's not so much about just doing an exercise. It's having the accumulation of doing it daily and having it become a positive habit, so that as time goes on, you will see an improvement in your vision, instead of just doing eye exercises for 2 months and then seeing an increase in vision improvement and then stopping for the next 50 years. It's really a case of doing it daily, and so that you can see those. Okay, it's going to be slower improvements, but it's going to be a gradual improvement instead of a decline in vision, which is certainly what all ophthalmologists and opticians will say, is that you have no choice but to have poor vision as you get older.
Right. And I think the key that we've discovered is this integration piece. And so, for instance, in my case, I've integrated vision. I've integrated palming into my meditation practice, and I've actually integrated sunning in there as well, because it's an important part of my life that I want to do as well. So that way I do get both done at the same time. And I know, Will, you essentially do eye exercises when you go for runs and things like that. So we've got a client who she does a lot of running during the day, and she has myopia. And one of the things we were trying to encourage her to do, of course, is distance looking. Now, she's a very active person, and she finds it difficult to just stand in one place and just gaze out into the distance, and she's got a busy life. But she noticed that if she runs in a particular place, then it means that she's got a nice horizon. And she's also found a place that has a flat floor, and there's no danger of her tripping or anything, and it means that she can look into the distance whilst she's running. And in fact, she runs for about an hour and a half, so she's doing a lot more distance looking than even we were hoping that she would do, just because she's incorporated it into her life. Yeah, it's actually it's a good thing. She's actually living a more natural life in some ways. Like a primitive human being would spend a lot of time running and looking in the distance. So in some ways, she's living in the way we were preaching in our the ebook, the modern day guide for improving eyesight. She's putting it into practice.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point there, because a lot of people that have read the ebook, A Modern Day Guide for Improving Eyesight, that you can download for free off our website at envisionselfhealing.com. It's a case of reading it and then thinking, after each section, because we've got 10 easy to understand sections there, it's sort of reading a section and then thinking to yourself, okay, how can I work these exercises into my life, and doing it realistically. Time and time again, we find people with lots of enthusiasm, and they come in and they dedicate their lives to doing the eye exercises, and then 14 days later, we hear that they've not done their exercises for a month and they need to start all over again. So it's really a case of again, being practical with the eye exercises, gradually work them into your lifestyle, and also give it a bit of commitment. I mean, these things don't come easy, right? It's took us a while, didn't it, Richard, to get to the point of having the exercises in our daily life.
It just takes some practice and trial and error to see, which exercises you need to do more formally, and which exercises just to be integrated into your the flow of your life. It just takes some time, but it's not that hard ultimately.
Yeah, some real great pointers there on putting your vision improvement into practice, and trust us, we know exactly how difficult and frustrating it can be. We've been there, and we both have the T-shirts. So certainly feel free to wing us an email and let us know how it is that you're getting on with your exercises, and indeed if you find new or exciting ways of incorporating the eye exercises into your life. But I think it's now time for question of the week. So this week's question of the week comes from one of our YouTube followers, and a real interesting case, actually, and it's certainly quite an important one for us to discuss. And the question is, or the person writes, "Hello, I'm from Argentina, and I'm contacting you to ask about healing my eyesight. I burnt my retina doing sun gazing, and now I see tons of sparks of light in my sight. It is so disturbing, the constant flashing. Thank you for your opinion." Well, obviously, quite a serious one there, Richard.
Yeah, we had initially we guessed at what sun gazing was. We knew that it was completely new, but it seemed like it was a meditation practice or something related to the sun, in which you look at the sun with open eyes. And us, with our eye conditions, we're of course a little hesitant that anyone should do that kind of thing.
I think we've read about it a little bit, haven't we? Where I don't know whether it's Ayurvedic or some sort of yoga practice where, from what I know of, they suggest to do it early in the morning or late in the evenings or something, where you just gaze at the sun. But unfortunately, like a lot of these things, the information gets diluted, and certain people that aren't necessarily qualified to give the advice, suggest specific and certain eye exercises to do. And unfortunately, people, go along and follow these sort of things without any real guidance. And I guess ideally, the individual would have noticed, after doing this sun gazing, that it wasn't really benefiting them that well, and maybe they shouldn't be doing the sun gazing in the first place. Right.
So our suggestion to her was to do palming for just a couple months at least, and give up on sunning. She didn't really need any more of that for now. Basically, we're looking on these kind of cases. We're looking for something that will alleviate the symptoms, which the palming should do in this case, but it's hard to know until she tries. And then she'll have areas of the retina that are damaged, and we'll be able to address those later once she's calmed down the flashing. So that's the response we gave. So it's an interesting case, though. I've never heard anything quite like this before.
Yeah, the white flashing, I think, it's a good point to say that if you do ever experience flashing of light in your retina, not some people talk about it's like halos. But more with the flashing of light, then you certainly want to contact your ophthalmologist or optician as soon as possible, and let them know this is going and get your retina checked. There's no harm in having a checkup. It's just important to be on top of things when you're doing this, and it might not necessarily be the eye exercises, but it could just be that you're paying more attention to your vision, so you might notice these things.
Right.
And also with the sunning, obviously when we suggest sunning, we always recommend for your eyes to be closed.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that in our videos where we talk about sunning. And this is to actually stop the sunlight from directly penetrating to the eye. And also sunning, we pretty much suggest any real time of the day. Try and avoid midday because it's the hottest point of the sun, and with sunburn and all the rest of it, it's not great. But when you have your eyes closed, it actually stops the UV rays from reaching the retina. So you don't have to worry about any of the UV ray damage or anything like that when you're sunning.
Right. Well, and if you live in a very an area with very intense sun, like Hawaii or India or something like that, you do really need to pay attention to not doing it in the middle of the day. Other areas, northern climates, it might not be such a big deal. But
well, very interesting stuff there, and as always, we recommend that with anything you want to go and get checked by your physician if you're thinking on doing any sort of eye exercises or you're experiencing any difficulties, and make sure everything's going well, as you do with everything, I guess. And if you like what you heard on this podcast today and you want to find out more, then head over to our Envision Self-Healing website, and that can be found at envisionselfhealing.com, where you will find dozens of free eye exercises and resources that you can use to improve your eyesight and start seeing better today.
So thanks for listening to this week's podcast from Envision Self-Healing, and we'll speak to you next week.